I'm Dean Rose, and in this episode of Conscious Chemistry, I'm going to give guidelines and/or advice that has worked for me over the alternative. And the purpose of that is simply to serve as a starting point with nuanced detail, and also to make it more personal. There's a lot of taboo subjects. For example, we are a relationally illiterate culture, and so of course we don't study it in high school despite its eminent relevance to all of our lives. And in that kind of a taboo, shame-based dynamic, it's exposing or vulnerable, meaning none of us know entirely what we're doing, and I think that's good to understand, that relationships are more complex both with ourselves and with another than we have current technology to be fully successful with. And in a shame-based culture that shames failure, anything that we don't succeed 100% of the time with, we just make it a little bit of a taboo topic. We just say that's too personal, and in doing so, maintain the taboo of ignorance. So there's more intimacy in something more personal, and also there's a little, it's proven, meaning yes, this did work a certain amount of the time. So I'm going to take the relationship that I'm in right now and talk a little bit about my navigation path into the relationship. Now, a good starting point in an emotionally illiterate culture is to assume that most of what most people are doing is either backwards or incomplete or harmful. And if you understand that there are not bad people, there are people with ineffective technologies for sustainably feeling good in relationships, then it becomes very suspect with the level of mediocrity and the level of dissatisfaction culturally that we are scientifically illiterate, emotionally illiterate, relationally illiterate. We are not using science effectively in any kind of an intelligent, measured approach to understand how to create multidimensional, passionate, win-win, sustainable, healthy relationships. So if we understand we're all novices, and there are many ways to skin a cat, there are many ways to achieve a goal, and that we are all unique, all that we can say in this arena is that this works some of the time for some of the people. So that's our starting point. Now, I was beginning this present relationship with my fiance in the worst psychological state of my life. I had been sexually traumatized on psychedelics by a therapist, and then had it covered up to protect the therapist when my life started falling apart around the event. And it was a man, and I'm typically heterosexual, never really been interested in a man, but under the influence of MDMA and mushrooms, that the predisposition for better or for worse kind of opened up, and I fell in love with a man while in an altered state. So this, for most American men, in and of itself is confusing. It's traumatic in a culture that is as homophobic as we are. You know, we've got all kinds of crazy ideas of what it is and is not to be a man. So anyway, so I was dealing with the confusion, the trauma, the brokenheartedness, the lies, the cover-up, the indignity that, you know, this individual chose to, you know, fuck with my psychology. I had been paying him $175 an hour. And so, you know, it's, you know, speechless, the amount of pain, you know, just enormous amounts of pain. Now, when trauma and pain get bigger than we are taught to deal with, and this was certainly in that category, we develop coping strategies. One of them is addiction. One of my addictions is control. Another addiction is, you know, obsessive fixation on a certain thing so I don't have to think about anything else. So obsessive repetitive behavior. I can pick it. You know, for example, pornography could be one choice that I could make, and I can just obsess about that for 3 or 4 hours, and in that 3 or 4 hour period what I'm buying myself is not thinking about anything else, basically. It's not all that fun, frankly, but it is high endorphin, you know, high stimulation, etc. And so I was aware that I was not a good candidate for a partner, because my number one God, my number one deity and value at the time was decreasing the amount of overwhelm and pain that I was in, which means that many addictive behaviors offer that opportunity more than being in a relationship with a growing human being who has mistakes, who provides pleasure in one moment and irritation in the next and all this. And so I was aware of this. I was also aware that secure, healthy attachments are the single most important pivot point in whether a traumatized individual transitions back into post-traumatic growth as opposed to death, deterioration, suicide, whatever. And so a secure, healthy relationship with at least one person was a major benefit to me. Now, this is where I'm absolutely furious with our culture, because, well, obviously I tried to find that with a therapist, and that had blown up in my face. I had been paid to recreate abuse. I'd paid money to recreate abuse, not heal it. So, you know, at some point, the idea of paying more and more people to fix the malpractice and violations of other people just becomes untenable. You know, I was 150 grand into largely ineffective therapy. So, you know, that's fuck you therapists, you know. So that avenue of secure attached relationship is off. Then comes American men. And the trouble is, I've never met the American man who lights up around emotional vulnerability, quality time, responsiveness, and the value of a male friendship, period. I think I gave up on man number 40 when, like all the others, he couldn't return a phone call. I sympathize with women because, you know, these assholes, you know, it'd be months, I'd call up and they'd say, oh, I was just about to call you. 40 of them. Oh, it was such a good conversation, let's talk again soon, da 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 da, I'm just about to call you. And they never did, not once. And at the end, I just, you know, about 8 years ago, I just never called a single one of them ever again. And they never called me ever again. So to that if you're irritated with someone who was just about to call you, but never seems to do it, I'd say fuck them, you know, because, you know, if they don't call back in 5 years, it kind of makes it a little bit hollow. And the statistics, not 1 in 40 suddenly became responsive when I stopped doing the initiating. It's just disgusting, frankly. And so I don't know how universal that is. I just know for me, the idea of going through the motions for male 41, 42, perhaps going through another 80 men before finding one that is responsive, makes quality time. And you know, there's plenty of nice people who say, oh, let's be friends. But when you drill down to, okay, so what does that mean to you? I've never met the man that says, oh, that means getting together once or twice a week and doing this and talking about this and having phone calls, or no, it's, I've never met that man. So for me, I go through so much change psychologically, you know, in business. There's so much going on in my life that if I'm not staying in touch on a weekly basis, and I want to feel like the person knows who I am, what's relevant to me, what's going on. If someone makes half an hour available once a month, for example, all they can do, if the whole half hour is spent talking about me, is get the very basic highlights of what's been different since. So I'm basically a newscaster. Here's the update since you last had time to connect. I've done this, I've written this book, I've changed this, I'm now out of this relationship, in this relationship, etc., etc. And I don't want to be a newscaster. You know, I don't want to have to work that hard or feel like the person is making all the assumptions based on stuff that's out of date. And so that's not, you know, not satisfying, you know, for me. So men were pretty much out of the picture. And I've never had a man come up to me in my entire life and say, let's have a deep quality friendship. I'd like a great male friend like you. Just never happened. Not in 100,000 encounters, you know, and so that's, you know, for me, disappointing and not particularly personal. You know, I've had people tell me that I'm one of the most interesting people they have ever met. And so, presumably, people treat men and women in terms of callbacks and initiation even worse if they're not interesting, you know, and so it's just kind of a disgusting landmine. And I don't like networking relationships. I mean, I can get what I need done in my life done very efficiently. I don't need male friends to, you know, swap clients with or something like that. I want people that care about my heart, my feelings, and that care about their own feelings and want to collaborate in an emotional way. And this is not the area that the men that I've met connect. So that's out. And then we've got, then you've got prostitutes. I've explored in the United States, maybe 5 prostitutes, just exploring, because I have no issue with the idea, meaning one of the most valuable things a human being gives to me is interacting on my time frame in the way that I like. I don't care if it's sex, you know, it's, you know, if someone will pick up the phone right when I want to talk with them and talk with me, you know, half an hour, 3 hours, and then about things that I'm interested in, that is incredibly valuable. And if they enjoy it and it's rich for them, that's incredibly valuable. And so, and that is the single biggest need that, as an American in America, I do not find that need satisfied more than about 10%. So of all the times I thought it would be lovely to talk about so and such now, less than 10% of the time have I actually gotten to do that. And so, yeah, so the idea of prostitution as someone who's kind of on call at my time frame and that meets, you know, their financial needs in part for doing that. You know, it's certainly about the fourth option. I mean, after men who don't return calls, after therapists that, you know, don't particularly work good, after, you know, after clients that don't like talking about anything personal, after girlfriends that often don't show up and initiate. Well, you know, maybe the fifth option, okay, is there anything there? And, you know, I tried maybe 4 prostitutes in the United States and 4 prostitutes in Thailand. And all I could say was that it was better than boredom. And it was better than loneliness, but it was not very good. And in the United States, it's extremely expensive. You can drop $1,000 for 3 or 4 hours of time. That is, you know, mediocre. And you find the same thing. The prostitute is not working as hard on the conversation or on the thinking or on the presence as I am. So, you know, it's just kind of pathetic. And then, you know, in Thailand, the presence is higher. There's no language skill. I don't particularly like having sex with people I don't have a rapport with. And so, you know, what I do sometimes in Thailand is I just show up with a meal. You know, there's a lot of, in the bars or shops or whatever where the prostitutes hang out. If I like someone as a vibe, I'll show up with a meal. We'll just chat, you know, and or spend a little time and you know, they enjoy being treated like human beings, and so, but it's not terribly satisfying, and it's irritating to me that the general message that I've gotten my entire life is you've got to do all the work. Now, with a prostitute, I've not only got to do all the work, or at least 2/3 of it, they want to be paid for me to do all the work, you know, to get out Google Translator and this and that. And so that's not terribly satisfying. And it's very difficult to find someone who is enthusiastic about showing up for the potential of synergy and partnership together, and who's prepared, who's done their homework. You know, in work, because we are, you know, worshipers of the god of money, in work, people have their resume, they have their skill sets, they keep themselves refreshed, they have references, they're quite happy to explore where they're good and not good as a formal interview, etc., and then dive in. They're very motivated and they'll work 8 hours a day. In relationship, you know, what's your resume? Oh, I don't want to talk about it, and you know, what's gone on in your last 3 relationships? What do you want to improve? What do you, that's all done with. I'm all over that. And so what's your love language? I don't know. What's your ideal relationship look like? It's, I just like to keep it as, so how much time do you have budgeted for your next relationship? Oh, you know, casual, we'll call you, I'll call you, let's see what happens. It's just very unstructured, unprofessional. I mean, it's not, there's no thought. And there's minimal transparency and there's minimal partnership. It's very much, particularly in the United States, let's just see what happens, as if what happens is up to this mysterious relationship god, as opposed to what will happen is what we decide to make happen, just like work, just like driving. You know, you don't get into a car and see what happens. If you want to drive to Safeway or Whole Foods or whatever, you go there. Not because it happens, but because you wanted to go there. In fact, it never happens. You go there because you wanted to go there. And it's not to say you can't have serendipitous thoughts as you're driving by, oh, I forgot to go there, let's go. But it doesn't just happen. You're on the accelerator driving by. And so, you know, this left me, in terms of the secure attached relationship doorway, the awareness that a partner, you know, a lover partner that really wanted to grow and work together 24/7 would be ideal. And I had my long list. You know, I thought an over 50-year-old would probably be more self-aware. Statistically speaking, they are. I thought that, you know, someone retired would have more time and also a little independence. It's nice if the purse strings are not controlled by one person. And it's nice, frankly, if you can keep relationships money neutral, meaning that the relationship does not raise or lower the living standard or the income of either person. Now, by making relationships money neutral, you take some of the politics and some of the charge and some of the power dynamics out of the relationship. None of them are healthy, meaning I've yet to meet the situation where people come in with really clean, clear, healthy senses around money and power, such that having an imbalance in money or an imbalance of power helped the relationship. And there are infinite ways that an imbalance of money and power can sabotage a relationship. So if at all possible, I like to keep it money neutral. And this, by the way, goes both ways. I found myself very uncomfortable. There was actually a woman, multimillionaire, award-winning author that wanted to marry me. And I didn't. And she offered me a few $1 million if I would hang in there for 2 years. And after that, if I didn't like her, we could get a divorce. I said no. I didn't like the feeling, but it gave me a chance to think about what does that feel like to know that I'd rather be alone or with someone else on an emotional level, but I'm taking into account the fact that this woman would really like it and there's a few $1 million. And, you know, I didn't think it did anything healthy for the few days in our relationship when I was even thinking about it. And so, you know, we separated. So I don't like the idea of a woman being in that situation. My mother was in that situation with my father around money. There was a period of time she absolutely loathed him, but she wouldn't leave because of the money and the lifestyle. You see, and what really bothers me, at that point she knew it, which was good, but what really bothers me is the women that I meet that do not talk to me about their husbands or their marriages as if they are loyal or happy or grateful or enjoying themselves. They're not. And in every situation, it's like, well, what the fuck are you doing in that relationship? What they're doing is living off the man. That's it. And they will not talk to their man the way they talk to me about the relationship and the man, because they know that that's the deal. Because they don't want to leave and have to make their own money. I think that's so sad. You know, it's that anyway, it's terribly very sad. So I don't want a woman in that situation. So, you know, I have a whole bunch of different filters about this. So over 50 for inner awareness, values, etc. And if retired, you know, more quality time. Quality time is number one. And money neutral if at all possible. And good communicators, you know, speaks English, of course, and likes personal growth, Now, I wasn't meeting that woman, and this is heartbreaking, meaning I can fly anywhere in the world, anywhere. Get in a plane, I'm there 20 hours later, 10 hours later. But I don't know where this woman is. That prioritizes personal growth, that is an excellent communicator, that prioritizes the synergy of the relationship, that doesn't play games, that cares about another human being and what they're feeling, that is capable of realizing and seeing the opportunity of partnering, and that is as interested in the growth opportunity and the healing and loving opportunity as I am, and enjoys close physical affection and proximity. I'm just striking out. I've been striking out in the United States, you know, for years on this. And now I'm striking out in Thailand and Philippines. In fact, you know, my last relationship in Thailand that, you know, had elements. Her culture and her family were both more important than the relationship, and both deeply at odds with much of who I was. And then she was not honest. She wasn't honest about that. She kept saying that I'm perfect, and then trying to change absolutely everything that I was doing. And then when I'd say, well, I'm obviously not perfect, why don't you make a complete list of all your objections? The way I eat rice, you don't like the way I eat rice. You don't like what I do with salt. You don't like the way I talk with the waiters. You don't like the flirting I do with the staff. You don't like the way I like to hold your hand in public. You don't like the... So make your 100 item list of everything that I do that is wrong, and I can confirm this I will never change because I don't want to change it. This I'm happy to change, but it'll take time. This I would be happy to change, but I can't. I've tried it. You know, that's a bit of my personality that's pretty deep. I've tried to change it for years, so it's not going to happen. I agree with you. It would be nice if I was less impatient and but it's not going to happen. And this I will change. And if you will actually honor your choice or separate, because you can't, that's great. She wouldn't do it, you know, and it's just a nightmare. And, you know, it was a nightmare because I didn't want to abandon her, and I didn't want her to think this, you know, I didn't like her or anything. It's just, I don't like lies, and to my eyes, being told that I'm perfect but have to change every single thing that I do is a massive lie. And the fact that she wouldn't ever write the list, she would just nag me as it was going on. You know, I don't like being constantly nagged. Oh, that's not the way you talk to the people here. That's not the way you eat rice. That's, you know, I don't like it. And I don't want my day, you know, waiting for the next, you know, nag and all that. So, and then I put my partner first. I don't give a shit what my family thinks about my partner. If they don't like her, they don't have to spend time with her, fine. And I'm not going to change who I am for someone's family. You know, it doesn't feel balanced. And so there was that asymmetry. So anyway, that didn't work. And then I'm in the Philippines because it's much easier to find someone who speaks English. It's much easier to find people who are retired, who speak English, who are more feminine, who are more flexible. And so this seemed like but I'm not finding the over 50, person. And as I mentioned, I'm not in a great place. So I get an intuition around this 24-year-old woman. And to meet her, basically. I look at what's going on there, and the only thing she wrote to me is, "I want to meet with you." And then she adds, as a complete non sequitur, "I play golf on Mondays." It's like, this is everything I don't want in a partner. Young, who gives a shit about playing golf, has not addressed a single important thing in my profile. Why does she want to meet me? And so this is one of the few times that intuition has played a really key role. Typically, logic and strategy play a good role. What I mean is, for example, I like someone with quality time. I have never met someone with quality time who takes 3 or 4 days to respond to a first email. If I'm looking for daily communication and I write to someone and they write back in 4 days, they've just told me they don't like daily communication. It's that simple. If I'm looking for someone that is enthusiastic and they respond in 4 days, they've just told me they're apathetic. And if I'm looking for someone who meets me and they haven't initiated and they haven't escalated the exchange, they're not proactive and initiatory. They've just shown me in the very first 10 minutes of the relationship, I have no interest. That's normal. That's normal America. It's not what I'm looking for. Now this is, of course, a very big distinction. If normal America is comprised of the vast majority of highly mediocre, sometimes violent, cheating, dishonest, whatever relationships, and I don't want any of that, then I want something unnormal. That's what I'm looking for, a specific kind of abnormality, anomaly. I'm looking for an anomalous person that does not behave like everyone else and that prefers not to behave like everyone else because they're interested in something better than average. That's what I'm looking for, which means, because it doesn't happen magically, it happens when two people behave better than average. So I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for that in the very first exchange, because I've learned with 70 to 100 lovers, pattern analysis of what goes on. I've learned that people behave over the entire relationship very similarly as a general rule to what they do in the first 3 days. If the first 3 days they escalate the relationship, then generally they escalate the relationship. In the first few days, if they are warm and welcoming, generally they are a warm and welcoming person. If the first few days they're responsive and balanced, then that's usually what they do. In the first few days, if they want me to pay for everything, that's usually what they want for the rest of the relationship. So I just pay attention. Are you the person I want? Being yourself in the first 3 days. It's very basic. And in the first email exchange, someone that gets a one-page email and doesn't say "Dear Dane" and just asks a question, "What did you want in this area?" It's like, oh, rude, abrupt person who is so self-centered that I should write a whole page and then satisfy their curiosity. Interesting. Okay, well, goodbye, rude and self-centered person. I'm looking for someone that engages with some of the meat of the email and escalates it. Ideally, you read a one-page email, write 2 pages about what you liked, didn't like, and then all about you. Take it to a next level, and do it in the next 24 hours. So this is very basic. It is not basic in the United States. It is an avoidant attachment style as a culture. There is even a snobbery in the United States to show that if I don't need you and I don't think you're important, that makes me more important. Well, I have no interest in any of that, so off you go, off you go, off you go. And so here's the young woman. So I follow my intuition on the basis that I can be helpful, meaning I'm very clear she doesn't satisfy what I'm looking for. But I have an intuition to meet her. And so what I think, this is what I rationalize. Why would I have such an intuition? I say maybe I could be useful to her. So I say, okay, well, rather than being annoyed that she's not what I want, if I have this meeting, I should have it on the basis that I will be helpful and not expect anything back, because she cannot give me what I want. So we have the meeting, and, you know, consistent with the intention, I ask her about the problems in her life, about the areas that she wants to know more that she doesn't know, about the areas she might or might not need help. And there's 5 key areas. And before we go, I give her one of my books. I think it was 101 Choices on My Path to Well-Being. And I give her help in each of those 5 areas. And the help I give her all requires her to do things. And I close saying, if you read the book and if you take action on all these 5 things, and you would like to engage more, here's my email address. And if not, good luck in your life. She read the book, and she did all 5 things, and it helped her. And so I thought, okay, my intuition was meet this person. My logical assessment was the only thing that I could possibly do with this person was be helpful. I have been helpful. She's happy. I guess that's the deal here. So let's see how else I can be helpful. And so the next thing I did is I gave her one of my user's manuals. It's a short one, but it's 65 little sentences, pages, and little drawings that talk about how someone can effectively interact with me. And I've given this to probably 200, maybe 300 people as a filter. Again, this is a kind of intimacy that is unusual. It is a kind of intelligence that is unusual. Actually teaching someone how to succeed with you as opposed to leaving it to the guessing game. This is not something that a lazy person or someone afraid of the unknown or someone who doesn't want to know and be known is going to respond to. Well, that gets rid of all those people, right? So I give it to 300 and to see who responds to what. Well, she likes it. Now here's a challenge that I've given to about 50 women. Will you write a user's manual to me based on what was helpful about my user's manual to you? And no one has ever done it. No one. Not a single woman. Not women wanting to marry me, not women who thought I was the best thing since sliced bread, not women who were bored, not women who said they wanted a conscious relationship, not people at seminars for growth and blah, blah, blah. No, they don't want to do it. It's too uncomfortable, it's too much work, it's too vulnerable, so they don't do it. Well, she does it, and I'm very interested because this is making her the only woman in the world who is this responsive to coaching, who learns this quickly, who is this proactive, who works this hard, and who is behaving intelligently. Because it is intelligent to give someone a user's manual with a new laptop. It is intelligent to give someone a user's manual with a new lawnmower. And it is significantly more intelligent to give someone a new user's manual with a new person. Because if you think lawnmowers are complicated, if you think laptops are complicated, if you think Windows is complicated, if you think Mac OS is complicated, just compare it to a human being who you're living with 24/7. That's complicated. Because none of these things have feelings. None of these things have times of month. Or suddenly, your computer doesn't say, get out of here, go to hell. It's the 29th of the month. I'm not going to open that program. Go away. Your laptop doesn't do that. But your partner does. And they don't give you warning, on the 29th I'm going to look down, and if you ask what I'm looking down about, I will be snappy at you, and if you ask what the snappiness is about, I will launch into a tirade, and then I will pretend it didn't happen the next day and leave you in the complete dark about what's going on until you figure out that this is just what I do every month for 3 days or whatever. If the relationship lasts that long, that's not an inviting proposition. So users' manuals for people are very intelligent. So naturally nobody does them. And highly growth-oriented people, I'm interested in, I want to read Eckhart Tolle, I want to do channeled work, I want to do this and that, but they don't want to do the user's manual. So here's a woman that does the user's manual. Now, she does the user's manual, types it away on her phone. 35 pages, some of the best writing I've ever seen. And she gives me the key of how to make her happy and healthy and to love her in the user's manual. She gives me the keys. Now all I have to do is take these big imbalances in her life and behave in a way that balances them. Take these blind spots in her life and behave in a way that brings light to them. Takes these pains in her life and behaves in a way that is kind to them. And takes these sensitive trigger points in her life and be gentle around them. And bingo, she feels very, very loved. Well, this is wonderful. And so I decided to do just that. Balance this, respond to this, avoid this. Well, she's suddenly one of the happiest women I've ever met. Now, every man wants to make his woman happy. And every man likes to succeed consistently at making his woman happy. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm making this woman happy logistically. I'm making her happy in what she's learning. I'm making her happy about herself. And she's doing most of the work. Meaning I may give her an idea, like I want you to, first thing when you wake up, do some inner child meditation. The meditation goes like this. You want to look for this thing, you want to do it like this and like this and like this, and let me know how it goes. That takes me 5 minutes. Well, she does it every morning for a week and a week and a week, and her life is skyrocketing because that wasn't a random thing. That was not for me. When you see someone who is deeply traumatized in childhood, and you understand psychology, and you understand the effectiveness of inner child meditation, for many people, the most intelligent thing is to teach that technique, recommend it, and then the most intelligent thing for the person on the other side is to actually try it. Well, she tried it, and the very first time she tried it, she felt a lot better. So I said, do it every day. Again, this is not for me. The most intelligent thing that I can say, if a bit of medicine works for someone, is to say, take more medicine. And the most intelligent thing she can do, if it works beautifully the first time, is do it again. So we're trying to collaborate in her interest, which is to collaborate to improve her well-being, which is to collaborate by me initiating and her responding, which is more intelligent in this particular relationship than her initiating and me responding, because she does not have my life experience or expertise in this arena. If she had, I wouldn't have been able to, be of service. She'd have already known it all, and she'd be already doing it. And so it always makes sense in a relationship for the person with the most caring, the most expertise, the most sensitivity, the most desire to help, to lead the relationship in that area. And so in this case, we're looking to script some of her goals and daily routines in a way that will dramatically lift her psychology. Now, improve her body's health, her mind's health, her emotional health. This is great. Now, I've noticed that I love the women that support me in being the man that I find easy to love. For example, a man who is helpful, I love that man. So if a woman allows me to help her, I get to be the man who is helpful. A man who is generous, I love that man. So if a woman graciously receives, I get to be the man who is generous. I love a man who takes time to teach, to share knowledge that is useful. I love that man. And a woman who honors and receives the gift of knowledge allows me to be that man. I can't do it alone. And so her choices in this dance so far in the first few weeks of the relationship, this is all in the first few weeks, are allowing me to be a man that I love being. I love giving, I love sharing knowledge, I love I love being kind, I love being successful. Now, her hard work is allowing me to feel like I matter and that my suggestions are creating success, which means that I'm succeeding at helping her have a better life. And so I'm getting to be all this. So I get to be the man that I love, number one. Number two, and then also there's comfort, like I'm bossy. That's comfortable for me. I've run my own company since I was 17. I'm the oldest of 5. I'm a natural leader. And so that's comfortable. Now she's Asian as a Filipina. And the culture, she's not going through a feminist movement of rebelling against all of that. So she's raised to believe that older men and that older successful men are to be respected and that they can teach you things, that's an intelligent thing for a young woman to do, is to actually appreciate and respect an older man who if you're lucky, will care about you and help you. And she's seeing that going on. And so she has no, I'm not going to do what anyone tells me to do bullshit going on. She's got, I'm lucky to have an older man taking an interest, who knows more than I do, who has more than I do, who cares and has expertise that's going to take me decades to get. So this is intelligent. She's got that. Now that makes me comfortable because I've got this feeling of bossiness, regardless of who I'm dealing with. But, you know, if it's a young American woman, I've got to rein that in constantly for fear of offending her. Not because I don't have a clear sense of what I think would be useful, but because in America, the young woman has the message that her independence, her autonomy, and her value goes down if she defers to what an older man tells her. So she has got to reject everything that I tell her, independently of how useful it is to her. And I've got to suppress what I want to do that's helpful, independent of how helpful it could be and how much experience I have, for fear of not offending her, which is a complete waste of everyone's time. I don't like wasting time. I call that a game. Because here's someone that needs knowledge they don't have, and they're going to reject it to prove how important they are, which in rejecting it is going to maintain their ignorance. And then they're going to continue ignorant for another 10 years, learning something themselves the hard way that they could have learned in 5 minutes by just being polite to a mentor. That's dumb. It doesn't work. It doesn't help anyone. What do? You know, I don't deal with that. You know, that's one reason I like the over 50 crowd. So she's just grateful and appreciative, which I realize I am not going to get hammered for being helpful. And that's, so one less thing I have to worry about. So this is going good. So this is all going on, and I come to the conclusion after about a month, maybe it's probably 3 weeks. After 3 weeks of this, in which every day she spends 4 to 6 hours doing the things that I've suggested, every day her happiness and well-being, her intelligence, her knowledge, her independence is going up. Every day she's appreciative, and every day it's my job to think of any refinements, because a good teacher, if your student is not succeeding with what you teach, you didn't do a good job. So I want to hear every single day what worked about my suggestion and what failed, so that I can make a better suggestion, so I can be a better teacher. And I do that for 15 minutes a day. So she sends me a report that takes her 15 minutes to an hour to write. She often writes it out about what she did and what was the result. And then I have to look, am I giving her good advice? And I may have a question or something, but I spend 15 minutes and she's spending 4 to 6 hours. 15 minutes, 4 to 6 hours, 15 minutes. I'm being of service, coaching, mentoring, providing suggestions, try this thing, use this app, try that, do this, for whatever she needs. And I'm listening, how's it working? And I'm trying to improve it. So 15 minutes on my part, 4 to 6 hours on her part. 15 minutes, 4 to 6 hours, 15 minutes. It's going splendidly. I conclude that she is the best student I have ever met in my entire life. I conclude that because she is making it easy for me to teach her, which is translating into hundreds of % of increased well-being, that she's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. Because I'm the same teacher with anyone. The reason I'm having more impact with her than any American, for example, is I've never met the American that lays out their problems on a first date, that implements the solution and tests them, that gets back and is appreciative and asks for more, and then goes to work and improves their life. I've just never met the American that is that intelligent. And so they're saying, no, that's not what dates do. No, I'm independent. I don't need anyone. So that's what they're doing. And here's someone improving their life. So I think this is very smart. And I'm delighted. It's like, thank heavens I had an intuition. I want to make someone's life better. At that point, I was feeling absolutely miserable because what I was helping her with, I had done all of that, decades ago. I was doing inner child work in my teens and stuff. I had done all of that, and it had all come to nothing. Meaning relationships, the single most important thing in my life. Failure upon failure upon failure for reasons that I had not understood until just a few months before meeting her. I didn't understand what trauma was. I didn't understand the biology of trauma. I didn't understand that I had PTSD. I didn't understand the way trauma was eating away at the sustainability of my relationships without me having a single bit of vocabulary, science, or technology to deal with it. So I was sinking again and again in my relationships, and relationships were the most important thing for me. So I was failing again and again. So I'd had, 70 to 100 lovers by the time I met this woman. And I felt that since I'd failed to create the kind of excellent, sustainable relationship I want 100% of the time in those 70 to 100 of them, I wasn't married to anyone, that every one of those relationships had come to an end. Some very beautiful endings with gracious endings following the guidelines in the book and stuff, and some, just disappointing experiences that lasted 1 or 2 days, and some, try it for a few months and it's just too mediocre for one or both of us, and it's not growing, and it's just frustrating. And so here's this woman, and I had some hope because she was doing things that no other woman would do. So I think it's very obvious objectively that a user's manual for every single human being on the planet would be a step forward. I think it's also pretty practical that it doesn't take most people more than about 8 to 10 hours to write a user's manual. Here's my optimum sleeping routine. This is my astrology. These are my worst experiences. These are the patterns I want to avoid in future relationships. These are my weak points. These are my strong points. This is what brings out the best in me. This is what I don't like about myself. This is what I like about myself. These are my allergies. These are my sexual personas. This is my STD status. This is write out what works for you. It's very, very basic in a relationally literate culture, which of course we're not. It's still, every fucking thing you buy at any store on the planet comes with a user's manual. Wash this in soft water, not in this. Good to know. Why is a piece of clothing more valuable than your heart? That's the really big question in the space of why no one in 100,000 people has ever handed me a user's manual. Why, when I give someone a user's manual, they don't know what to do with it. And no one except this woman is willing to write a user's manual. Now, her user's manual then means that it's the first user's manual I've ever received. Now, I've dated 58-year-old wizards in psychology. The woman that wanted to marry me and pay me $2 million. She was a psychotherapist and a successful author. They didn't have user's manuals. They wouldn't write them. Who knows what blocks get in the way there. Here's a 24-year-old where English is a second language, and she sits down and writes it on her phone. That's not laziness. That's profound dedication. That's good student. You know, this is anomalous. So I'm paying more and more attention to how I'm feeling. And I like the man I get to be in the relationship. I like the woman she's becoming in the relationship. I couldn't ask for a better student, so my teacher is just proud and thrilled. I couldn't ask for a better situation to be of service because she's traumatized and she doesn't know about it either, and I'm just learning about trauma. And the best way to learn something is to try and teach it. So I teach her everything I know about trauma, and she learns that, and her life gets better. And I realize we have similar needs due to our traumatic past. And so at some point, you know, a month or so in, I give her the choice. I say, I will be your mentor just to be helpful to you for as long as you want. As long as you work this hard, I will be there for you. It's an honor to meet someone like you. And I mean, you know, at this point, I'm dealing with someone who's growing hundreds of % every month. And her happiness is up 300 or 400%. You know, it's like, wow. That's what I call a good return on investment. That's what I call growth. And so, so I say, that's fine. I say, and you need to do what's good for you. You need to do what's best for you. I will be here as a mentor as long as you want to learn at this rate, for as long as you want. And number 3, I am a terrible long-term bet for a romantic relationship right now. I've got PTSD. I'm in the worst place I've ever been in my life. Because I'm in the worst place, I'm putting my disease and managing my state first and a partner second. And I'm an addict, meaning I compulsively eat at times. It feels so terrible. I compulsively sleep at times. I compulsively watch porn at times because the pain is so big. And you need to know that you come second to my addiction and my disease. Not because that's fair, not because I want you to, but because that's the reality at my skill of dealing with this level of sexual abuse and all that. And so, and it's unknown for me, so I cannot confidently say, but I've never lied to a woman, I've never cheated on a woman. And so so you should expect the romance to be volatile and short-term, because that seems highly probable. But you are the most interesting woman I know on the planet today. And so if you wanted that, I'd be open. But think about it and do what's best for you. Right off the bat, she said, I would love to be your lover. And so right off the bat, I said, I'll be there in a couple of days. I flew from Thailand back to Philippines to hang out with her. And here she showed up. Again, my biggest gripe of women all around the planet is that it takes big blocks of quality time. It takes big blocks of quality time to find one's algorithm of flow, peak value, minimal stress, you know, the dance. And the way I like to do that is very direct and not under pressure. How do you feel when I touch you like this? Are there sore points on your body? You know, how do you feel sleeping in this bed? In this, how's the temperature? You know, we map out how we like to be, and I don't assume anyone is like me or that I'm like them. And so it has to be done directly and consciously. You don't just want a 10-hour interview with. So you want to intersperse this. You want this to come first. That's intelligent. This is kind of educate up front rather than copy and perform and project and all this bullshit. So she takes 2 weeks off work. And she doesn't ask for any money. That's big in the Philippines. She's lowering her income to take a risk on me. Now this is actually a pretty big indicator of a number of things. First of all, I've got all the quality time I want. Second of all, I feel like I'm valued. Thirdly, I feel she's showing respect for my effort to help her, as opposed to, you know, you'll find any number of Asian women will, oh, I need to send money to my family, da 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 da, and they always have some reason they want more money for something or other. So this is unusual. This is unusual, and this impressed me because it's unusual to meet a Filipina who doesn't have plenty of things that she'd love to be buying if she had earning power, which many of them don't. Her earning power at the time was around $120 a month. Compare that to, you know, one night in a 5-star hotel at $200. You know, it's so tons of stuff that when I met her, she didn't have glasses, but she couldn't see very well. So she had plenty of things, and she knew that I was rich. And I watched what she did in the whole 2 weeks. She never asked for anything. She never hinted at anything. And when we separated, she didn't ask for anything. And I didn't pay her anything. In fact, I told her up front, I'm not going to pay you anything. So do what's good for you. And she took the 2 weeks off her salary. So that took her $120 a month down to $60 a month. And she thanked me for the time. I'm looking for anomalous behavior. This is all anomalous. Every single thing about her is anomalous, from the user's manual. So when we're together, then I'm looking for more anomalous things. She wants to show me photographs. And there's one photograph in which she is radiant. Now this is very telling. What releases an individual's radiance? And she's with a Down syndrome child. Well, child is around her own age, but maturity-wise, it's a Down syndrome individual who hasn't grown up more than about 4 years old. And every picture with this Down syndrome child, she's ebullient with love and care for this Down syndrome child. And this is a huge key to intelligence, because the cult says that this Down syndrome child is uneducated, is retarded. Uncultish direct experience with a Down syndrome child is illuminating. It's profound to be in the presence of uncultured, undogmatized consciousness. It's the radiance. There's so much light that can come through. Energy and truth can come through a Down syndrome child. Now, a culted mind will focus on the embarrassment of being with someone who is retarded, who is disabled. Someone who is in touch with their feelings will usually feel better around a Down syndrome child than any other person in their entire life in a Western culture, because most individuals have less energy and radiance and truth than a Down syndrome individual. And someone that picks up on that and amplifies it is the kind of intelligence that I'm impressed with. And so I notice that. Now I also notice she's very shy, but she tells me this one story about a special child, another child with Down syndrome, who got lost, because they do sometimes. And she said, I spotted him and I stopped the bus. Do you realize how big this is? Here is a petite, shy, sensitive, doesn't want to bother anyone woman who would probably drive for 6 hours needing to urinate herself without bothering the bus. But for a Down syndrome child who's a stranger, who she spots near the bus, she stops the entire bus. This moves me to tears. You know, it's so beautiful. She stops the whole bus and she educates the bus about what it's like to have Down syndrome. And she gets the people on the bus to work to get that Down syndrome child to be safe. Now, that's a hero in my book. It just moves me to tears. And that's when I saw that, you know, who gives a shit if she's not 50 years old? Who gives a shit if she's not retired? I don't like the power imbalance. I don't like the personality imbalance. I'm a dominant personality. I'm worried that I will inadvertently become, use my dominance in a way that's good for me, but not good for her. I'm worried about that. And, but based on her vitality, the truth of people's faces, she is an open book, meaning if she's sad, her face is sad. If she's filled with hate, her face is filled with hate. She is not someone who hides anything. She probably couldn't if she wanted to. And I love that about her, because that makes her easy. Her face is filled with hate. Honey, why do you hate me right now? Well, okay. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I shouldn't have done that. How's that? Her face will tell me. You know, it's like, I don't have to deal with 2-week guessing games and passive-aggressive bullshit and all this. You know, it's what's going on. I like to know. She likes to tell me. It's easy. I want what's good for her. I've been perfectly clear that if she ever meets anyone who is better for her than me, she should end our relationship clearly and go pursue it, number one. Number two, if she's ever happier on her own, she should end our relationship and go to it. And we should have a dialogue and stuff. So anyway, these are the keys that I'm looking at. Then there's another, there's another layer of thing that, because there is an imbalance of money, I've spent around $150,000, for example, in time off work and all this. And this is not her fault. This is the United States judgmentalism and racism around Filipinos. The United States will not let a single Filipina get a tourist visa to the US unless the Filipina makes $24,000 a year or more. She makes $120 a month. And you can kind of get the sense that this is eliminating 98% of all Filipinos. So they're basically saying that unless you're rich, you cannot visit America, period. I cannot. There is no loophole around this, and it is pathetic. So she's an amazing enough woman, so then I take time off work costing me 40 grand a month, laying off my crew to go spend time with this woman month after month, and costs a lot of money. And then the visa process to marry her and become fiancé is thousands of dollars and takes almost a year. Now, relationship chemistry does not obey visa policies. It obeys the algorithms of that couple. If you as a couple need 3 hours a day to be sustainably and stay in flow, and you give yourselves an hour a day, you will die as a couple. If you need to take space every other day and you are crammed into an apartment, you will die as a couple. If you need to be together every other day and you are together once a month, you will die as a couple. The relationship has its needs, and the more you dishonor them for any reason, work, prejudice, ignorance, lack of concern for your partner's feelings, visa policy, government regulations, whatever it is, the relationship dies. Now you can keep your agreements. You can say, okay, I will see you in a month, but you will be seeing someone you are no longer in love with, or that you're furious with, or you feel alone with, or whatever it is, and there will be no heart. The heart does not follow the dictates of money, government policy, etc. And this is the cruelty. So in a very real way, if I hadn't had $150,000 to put into the relationship, the United States government would have effectively murdered the most important relationship in my life and in hers, with zero interest. This is what you call a sociopathic government, when regardless of how you feel, like I wrote a letter to the embassy explaining that I had PTSD, explaining the rhythms of the relationship, and saying, you are the only fucking assholes messing with it. There's nothing wrong with this relationship except you. You will not let my friend come and visit me in my own house. And they didn't even respond. They could give a shit. That's sociopathic. Empathic is, oh, we're so sorry. We've been ruining your whole life. Let's change our absurd policy and care about one of our people. It's your tax money, of course. No. So you have this. But I illustrate this because there are relationships, many relationships would have survived in this environment, but we're not given that environment, so they're dead now. And more than 90% of all relationships, as a statistic that you ever start, will fail for reasons other than death. And they will fail for a combination of ignorance, lack of skill and training, and logistical incompatibility that no one cares enough to resolve. That's it. And the deathbed scene, for those of you that haven't looked into that, will be the regrets and losses, the aches and lonelinesses of all the love that was not given and was not received, because the relationship took place in an environment of emotional ignorance, relational ignorance, with a lack of logistical and cultural support. Oh, the culture will support the marriage, but not the quality time necessary to keep the marriage vital. The culture will support the accoutrements of Gucci handbags and this and that and the other immensely, but not teaching a goddamn thing about how to succeed in a romantic relationship in high school. No, it's a joke. It's a very sad state of affairs. So I continue in the routine, in the daily routine. I want her to read this book. I want her to, write about this, practice this, etc. To keep the power somewhat balanced, one of my goals was that she'd have her own international business that was independent of the relationship, and she chose art, and so she makes the most magnificent greeting cards I have ever seen. And I knew that, and I was happy to support her in that business, because she had given me 50 of the most beautiful, exquisite handmade cards that I've ever received or seen anywhere in my entire life. And she'd given me 50 of these. And I thought, you know, some lucky bastard is going to be excited to receive a card like this. And she loves making them and making people happy. And so, yes, this is a great business. The only question is, you know, well, anyway, she hates marketing. So that's the challenge. And so she's done various videos and stuff and has a little website. I think it's Little Jen's Custom Cards or jenscustomcards.com. jenscustomcards.com. I think that's it, yeah. And anyway, so that, and then watching her work is an absolute delight. In fact, she's gotten me into art. You know, where I have loved starting to paint. I won't get you one of the paintings right now, but it's actually I will. I'll get you one of them. I painted with her. I painted with her stuff from time to time. I did this a few days ago. But, you know, it's just so much fun watching her enjoy herself with art. And Robert Bly made a comment that to keep a marriage alive, a woman has to do some kind of art to capture a man's soul. And I found that an interesting quote, because, you know, at times when there's been some strain in the relationship, it has been the flowing from her heart in some kind of artistic expression that has kind of rekindled a lot of the flow. She's written me poetry, she's made beautiful cards, she's done paintings, she's sung songs, she's shared appreciation, she's shared stories. And these provide the language and vocabulary of imagination and reference point to continuously fall in love with who she is as a being, as a consciousness, and I just love that. So, so this, you know, that's a key element in the relationship, actually encouraging the soul, the feminine essence of a person to come out in images, in poetry, in language, to engage the soul so that it is a soul-rich relationship. And I'm very, very, very grateful to her, and I'm grateful for this aspect of her culture, because I didn't have to deal with any of the manufactured self-deprecation of an American saying, oh, this isn't any good, oh, this isn't any good, and all the fishing. No, the more happy she is and the more she connects with herself, she knows it's wonderful. Not because it's great art, what I just showed you, it's not great art. It's great art, it's great heart. You know, it's not about the piece. It's about the dynamism, the presence in the process of creating it. And sure, you create 1,000 paintings and slowly the technique refines, but the heart is there from the first one. The 5-year-old has more heart than the professional painter I know down the road, who looks at things from a business mind, looks at his iPad, copies the photo, calculates the amount of time it takes to do this technique and that technique, and how much he can sell this painting for, and that, and how many he has to sell every month. That's a master artist, but it is not a master heartist. You know, and I'd go with a 5-year-old who's enjoying the scribble, because that's what it's about. And so that's been, you know, a big indicator. Another factor that, well, so this could wrap things up. So this is the relationship that I'm in. And we consciously do a lot of things in terms of attuning. I'll share a couple of the primary technologies we use. One is the diary, which has a format of inner child meditation, what happened today, how we felt about what happened today. Another is the intensity of different feelings. So how much love 1 to 10 felt today, how much fear 1 to 10 felt today, how much hatred 1 to 10 felt today, how much anger 1 to 10 felt today. So we have a sense of not only where there's moments of friction and moments of great peace and beauty, but the intensity of it. Because obviously if I see, loneliness 9, it's like, well, I knew you didn't like that. I had no idea that that was a bigger issue to you than this thing. This is where 1 to 10 scale is so important, because what would upset me would not upset her, and what would upset her would not upset me. And so if I project my intensity ratings onto an object and just say, okay, it's a little loneliness, I think you're feeling 2, and then you look and you see, oh, that's a 9. Or, I didn't think that was a big deal. I knew you liked it, and so your love went up a little. No, your love went up 10 because I bought you some fresh tuna. Interesting. I didn't know how important that was. That's great. I'm going to make a note of that, And so 1 to 10 scale of impact both ways. I think this is even more important in a multicultural relationship. So daily diary, 1 metric, which includes dreams, meditation, what happened, metrics of increased love or decreased love, and things like that. Include a list of chores, clear responsibilities. I'm very clear that I want to leave a woman who knows how to run her own life significantly better, with more confidence, more stamina, that she is a stronger individual to be who she wants to be at the end of the relationship rather than the beginning. So that's a trend that's important. And so pampering someone too much is not a good plan. So I have her do everything she can possibly do to contribute in the ways that she can, and spend time every day learning something that helps her future. And she showed passion for that before I entered the romance. I don't think I would have entered the romance if she had not demonstrated a desire of her own initiative to improve her life. I don't want to be a sugar daddy. I don't want someone who's dependent on me in 10, 20 years. I want someone in 10, 20 years who, ideally is a millionaire with all the social graces and skills and stuff that they could do anything they wanted in their life with anyone. And if they're still choosing me, well, that's amazing. That's I will be honored. And if they're not, good for them. It's so this is an important goal. And one of the friction points in the relationship is after we got together and life got a little bit comfy, she slacked off on some of the investments in her future, because as long as I'm around, she doesn't need to invest in her future. I didn't like that. I want her to be in a stronger place every single month because of the relationship than she was before. So that she doesn't get more and more dependent. Like, oh my God, what would happen if Dane found someone he liked more, or you know, or Dane lost all his money. I don't want any of that. I want her to know how to take the lifestyle that I'm teaching her on her own and sustain that, so that she can make decisions that are in sync with her own truth and her own heart, from a place of power. Imbalanced power relationships do not lead to good places as a statistic. Now, I can't do anything about the fact that I make $40,000 a month and she makes $120 a month. But if through her business she goes from making $120 a month to $200 a month, and then from $200 to $600, and then from $600, and and if she was, and she's got to be able to do this, like with her art. Art is a tough business. It's not at all easy, and so and I like to think conservatively, but that's still a tripling of her lifestyle quality, and she can go back to the Philippines in a place of honor, with experience under her belt, and with her own independence to stave off, any abusive relationship, that might come in, and there's a lot of abuse in the Philippines. And so that's an important metric, and it's not relative to me. I'm worried. I don't. She never needs to make $40,000 a month or anything like that. I just want to see that she's investing in herself such that she knows very clearly from ongoing experience that she can take better and better and better care of herself, so that being together is a choice. And I give her a hard time if she slacks off on that. And so that's probably, at this point, more interesting to me than to her. But I watched what happened to my mother when she started hating my father. And the reason she hated him was when he started to have affairs in the relationship, she felt powerless to do her own thing. So it wasn't like, okay, you want to do that? That's not my thing, goodbye. I will have my own good life with somebody else or without you. It was, how could you ruin my life? I don't know how to make money. I can't run anything. I don't know how to balance a checkbook. I have nowhere to go. I have nothing to do. And I hate you. You've put me in this place. No, you've both put this place. He tolerated her in a state of profound dependency, and to some degree, pampered it. And she didn't care enough about herself to have her own options and the like. And I've never cheated on someone, and I've never lied, so that's not the issue. But if I'm not growing in the relationship or happy and not able to be the person I want to be, which, I've had one really amazing relationship where she learned everything I had to teach her in 4 years. And the relationship wasn't growing after 4 years. And I didn't know how to grow it. And she didn't know how to grow it. And so it was time to end. Obviously, I've never had a lifetime relationship. If I'd had several lifetime relationships, I wouldn't be, as mindful of how's it going to be for both people if it ends. But statistically, there's a 90% chance that any given relationship will. And so we've talked about that. We've talked about what a good ending ritual would look like. We've talked about exactly how it is. We're getting married shortly for a combination of romantic and immigration reasons, meaning my government will not let her in the country without getting married. I probably wouldn't be getting married without that requirement. But she is also the closest to a compatible woman. The amount that I've been changed positively because of the relationship, you know, we're talking 600% or more positive changes in me that I didn't anticipate, that I haven't experienced in most of my 70 to 100 lovers relationships. And this is great. And this is a great, I'm so pleased to say that I was wrong. I mentioned at the start that, you know, she had about 10% of what I was looking for on my list when I looked at her profile or talked with her in the first few days, so I had zero interest in doing anything but being helpful. And if she wanted it, I mean, I didn't know why I had the intuition to meet with her, I just followed it. But I wouldn't have followed the intuition if I hadn't been prepared to give without receiving anything. Now, so what that means is that I was 90% wrong in what was ideal for me for my next relationship. Now, I will not say that what was ideal on my list would have been bad for me, but what I can say is what was on my list for a relationship of which she only met 10% would not have seen me growing even 100%. And I've grown like 600% in really important areas. The typical relationship that I think would be ideal for my list, I would be very happy and grow about 20%. Now 20% is nothing to be snooty about, meaning a hedge fund that could guarantee a 20% return on investment per year would be, you know, very popular amongst investors. A relationship that sees both people growing at least 20% is a good return on investment. But she's grown 3,000%. Happiness stabilizing at about 500% higher. My creativity output has gone up 6,000%. My growth is up around 600%, and my happiness is up between 200 and 300%. Now that is a stunning return on investment, mutually. And I was very clear when I started my business at 17 that the reason I was going to become financially independent was not to be rich, not because money was important, but because I did not want concerns about money fucking up my relationships or affecting who I loved. And thanks to our US government, this relationship has cost me at least $160,000 in the last 2 years for the relationship. All that, you know, shutting down my business, setting up an apartment in Thailand, all this stuff. Well, that's not pocket money, at least for me not. That's half of that's more than a year's salary, you know, and that's out of my control. But because I took the time to learn money skills and have some savings, I was able, prepared, and willing to spend that money for one of the best relationships of my life. And I contrast that with some bitterness and humor at the woman in San Francisco who said that I was perfect for her, but she didn't want to pay bridge toll of $5 each way. No, each trip, one way, to cross the Golden Gate Bridge. She wanted to date someone in the city. And here I am traveling round trip 40-hour round trips to Thailand multiple times a year. First to Thailand and Philippines and Thailand. And spending $140,000. She didn't want to pay $5 every time she visited someone. It was a bit too expensive. But otherwise it would have been perfect. I mean, can you imagine the level of ignorance we're dealing with? You know, what's it going to be like on her deathbed if she skimps her entire life of dreams for the cost of $5? I mean, I could have easily offered to pay her the $5 bridge toll. I just wanted nothing to do with someone who in one breath would say, this is their dream and their soul's desire, and in the other breath would say, it may be my dream, but I care so little about myself and my dreams that I'm not willing to pay $5, even a movie fare, for an experience that is potentially profound. You know, this is laughable. It's a joke. It's hilarious. And many more people, I mean, I've had a number of women bail out when I made it clear that they would need to contribute something. You know, that I wasn't looking for a baby doll and to be sugar daddy. I was looking ideally for someone who at age 17, like me, said, I never want money to come between me and someone I love, so I'm going to take the time to learn about money so that I can meet someone where they are and not say, I love you, but I can't show up for you because I don't have the money. That's a discipline to learn something. So 1 to 10, you know, and that's why, you know, the woman who didn't want to pay $5 bridge toll probably had a salary of, let's say, $3,000 a month. So half of $3,000 a month would have been $1,500. So for her to make the kind of sacrifice that my partner did, getting a leave of absence for 2 weeks to reduce her salary from $120 down to $60, it's the same ratio. So she, you know, showed up for that. And that's just a lot more fun, frankly. Someone who works hard. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there about don't count and just, you know, give and don't expect to receive and I think that's bad advice, because I think my mother suffered a lot because she was too lazy to learn about money. So then when she finally had to separate, first she felt helpless and ended up hating my father for a year because she felt powerless, because she'd allowed herself to stay powerless in staying in the fantasy world. And it wasn't kind to her. You know, it was harder for her to like herself, to make the transition into independence and all that. So I don't think it's kind on the woman or the man to be in it. It's not good for love to have fear. Whenever there is a power differential, there is the probability of fear. You know, it's just a reality that if you have nowhere to go other than your partner's refuge, and they control all the strings and all that, it's just a reality that if you get into a fight, one of the thoughts that's crossing your mind is, oh, I hope this doesn't end the relationship because I've got nowhere to go. That's not, see, that distracts from the issue that needs to be resolved. So it actually makes it more likely the relationship will end if it's being operated under fear and repression. So that's not good. Well, then you can give your partner, you know, okay, here's money. And I did this. We did a prenup. And I gave her several $1,000s in the prenup, which means that she can go home, plus ticket and all that, which means that she can go home, not work for up to 6 months as she finds the right position and adjusts to the lack of relationship, still have a year's salary in the bank for her starting point, plus have all of the skills and her business and skills like that. And that she will not have so much that she can be lazy, that she will have to work hard and grow, which is what I want out of care for her. We love ourselves when we work hard and grow. Sure, most people will choose the handout over the skill and the hard work, but they will not enjoy the process as much, statistically speaking. It's not kind. And then if they don't feel that they have to work and then the money runs out, then it's this really, they let all their muscles atrophy, become used to an unsustainable lifestyle and then collapse. It's not good for them. So I tried to make the amount that she wouldn't feel it was in her interest to get married for money, or in her interest to stay in the marriage for fear of not having the thing that she... And I also just watched her and paid attention. And she never made decisions based on money. And she worked very hard in the first 6 months of our relationship. She would work 10-hour days on her greeting cards. And I thought, that's a good ethic. I think she can survive on her own. And I needed that, to know that I wasn't harming her, because I'm taking her at 24 years old. And if I didn't show up and no man showed up, she would be learning, growing her skills of self-preservation. And I don't want to be the reason that she doesn't learn. And so, that's something that is important to me, because I believe that's in her interest. And this separates the many kinds of love. There's lust, and we have a lust together. There's attachment, a feeling of emotional need, and we have a strong attachment together. There's a romantic love, a sense of respect and idealizing. I mean, like when I say I'm moved to tears because she stopped a bus for a Down syndrome child, that's very close to my ideal of a beautiful human being. And she likes things about me. And then there's joy in the presence. This is a kind of love. If you look at my book, Faces of Love, joy in the presence. We have a sense of joy, dancing, playing, cuddling, and playing, all this. And then there is the choice to be loving. Now, this is not instinctual. The choice to be loving is a discipline. It has nothing to do with the other things. And it has nothing to do with yourself. All these things are selfish. I feel lust for you. That's me. I'm attached to you. That's me. I feel joy in your presence. That's me. I aspire and respect someone like you. That's me. But being loving is a choice. It's an action. It's a discipline. And this has nothing to do with any of that. Meaning, I did not initially feel any of these things with her. When I met her the first night and had chosen, when I saw her email, none of this. All 4 of these. I didn't respect her. I didn't feel lust for her. I didn't feel joy in her presence. I didn't need her. That's the last thing I need. So none of these loves were there. But the choice to be loving was there. That was the beginning point in the relationship. I chose to be loving to this woman, meaning I could not see what I possibly could receive from this woman. And on the first date, I did not. I asked her, would you like a goodbye hug? No, she didn't. She was, it's like there was nothing about the first date that was anything other than, how can I help this woman? And that is a choice that we can make, whether we pants on fire around someone or totally cold. You can make the choice to be loving. Now, this is an action, and it is a discipline. It is not a feeling, a need, a lust, or whatever. To be loving to someone, you look first of all to their survival needs. What do they need on a survival level that they do not have, and how can you help? If you help them increase their survival, they will feel a little safer, which is a beginning of love. Their security. What do they need to feel secure in their survival? What knowledge? What do they need? A sleeping bag? Learn how to cook? What is it? Love and belonging, that they feel that they are welcome. What do they need? For example, she told me in one of our conversations that she cut herself sometimes, and she showed me a scar. And thankfully, I had read the book by Bessel van der Kolk on The Body Keeps the Score about trauma, and having read her user's manual, which included her biography, I understood that she was highly traumatized, highly abused as a child, and that this would have given her a sense of control, which a child who feels helpless in abuse needs. And so I knew that this was a very normal coping strategy for people who did not receive adequate support in what is a fucked up Filipino culture as well as a fucked up United States culture. I've met several American women who cut themselves. They're very nice people in many cases. And it does not speak of anything being wrong with those women. It speaks of what's fucked up about their environment. If you're around someone who cuts themselves, you're around someone who was not taken a stand for by anyone in their childhood, period. And so you might interview the parents, find out what's fucked up about them in terms of being a parent. You might interview their school system to find out what's fucked up about the school system. You can interview a lot of people around, the neighbors who probably saw bits of it and didn't intervene. So you can find a very fucked up ecology around someone who cuts themselves. Often, this person at the center who's taking the heat for all that is the most sane, healthy part of the whole mix, which is, a sad state of affairs. But anyway, so she told me about this, and I was able to educate her on the fact that trauma survivors feel a sense of control by internalizing the abuse and externalizing it with their body and distracting from emotional pain with physical pain. We don't teach people how to deal with emotional pain, so distraction from it with an addiction or a compulsion or a self-mutilation is often a healthy thing. So this was also one of the things that I looked at, knowing that the environment determines the level of self-mutilation, not the person. That if this baby had been born to a healthy environment, they'd just be like someone who doesn't mutilate themselves or feel the need to do that. And so this was also something that I wanted to monitor in our relationship, because if I was healthy for her, her self-harm would de-escalate rapidly. And if I was not good for her, it would stay the same because her current environment wasn't good for her, or get worse. And so this is one of the clues. And her self-mutilation went down. Her restlessness while sleeping went down. when I met her, she couldn't stop twitching. And this was processing violence at an infant and child level. And as a light sleeper, I couldn't initially deal with it, but I understood the purpose of that twitching. And so in the inner child meditation and in our relationship, one of the big goals was to take a stand for that infant and protect that infant and let that infant know there was an adult here in her and in me that would fight to protect her. Now, as that infant got the message slowly, that's gone down 80%, for example. Now, I still feel unimportant sometimes. I feel petulant sometimes. I feel lonely, unimportant, and petulant about, it's about 10% of the time. And I feel angry because, anyway, I'm used to living alone my whole life and all this, and so I have little tantrums about this. And so I'm surrounded in Thailand by hundreds of gorgeous masseuses who would love to, for $30, masturbate me and make me feel important. And that gives me a great rush of adrenaline and stuff. But Jen hates it. You know, my sweetheart hates it. And so I don't do it. But when, you know, do you want to go swimming? No. Do you want to do this? No, I'm busy writing my diary. No. And I feel unimportant and, you know, just waiting around and feel small. I'll have a tantrum and want to watch porn or, you know, go and spend time with a masseuse. I won't lie and I won't have agreements, but it pisses Jen off just that I lust after these women, which I do. You know, if I don't like the woman, I don't want to have a massage. If I do like the woman, by the time she caresses me with her wonderful presence, I feel highly aroused. And because I don't keep secrets and don't like partitions of any kind, I tell Jen everything that went on. We have agreements like no masturbation, no kissing on the lips, no nudity. But other than that, you know, sometimes I'll hug a masseuse or cuddle together or just feel very aroused. And occasionally these masseuses who typically get a tip for being extra sexual will be quite persistent. I have one absolute, you know, masseuse constantly trying to undress and rub her breasts on me, which is past the boundary. So I feel like a 4-year-old, you know, who's not getting what he wants if Jen isn't giving me attention. And when this comes up, you know, it becomes very aggravating, but the only reason I feel that way is because she's busy and she's jealous of the masseuses, and so I could easily feel important there, but I'm not doing that out of respect for her feelings, and I could easily feel important if she gave me some attention, but she's busy doing something or other. You know, this is a friction point. And so what I notice is that if I push that to, okay, you do what you want, I'm going to go spend some time with the masseuse, it's not to punish her, it's to feel more powerful and to feel like I can meet my own needs without begging, because I hate that feeling. But I am aware, nonetheless, that she hates it. And